Let me share with you a tricky question which tests your pattern recognition as well as analytical skills. Which of the following squares comes next in the sequence? And you're presented with the sequence of 5 squares, and the 5th square is missing. And you have 4 different choices to choose from: A, B, C, and D. Do you recognize the pattern in this question? Do you think you know the answer? Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to look closely and see if you can recognize which shape should be selected out of the 4 choices presented. Did you figure out the solution? Let's continue to see how we can get to the correct answer and solve this challenge together. As usual, my recommendation to you is always look for patterns. And let me share with you which patterns are present in this question. Obviously, there are multiple patterns present, because this is the type of questions you get in the test. The first pattern is where half circles rotates clockwise inside the square. So the first position is on the right, next position is at the bottom, then left, top, and then you see the cycle repeating. The second pattern is where L shape is located at the opposite direction of where it was in the previous square. So you see that the L shape in the first square is located in the bottom left. In the next square, it's located in the upper right corner. And then the third pattern, also related to the L shape, is where L shape only changes its location after being in the same place twice, which is also being followed by the triangle. As you can see, the L shape in the first square is located in the bottom left corner. And then in the next 2 shapes, it's located in the upper right, and then in the upper right again. Then it changes the position and goes into the bottom right. And then the next 2 positions, according to the pattern, would be upper left and then upper left again. And then the last but not least pattern is the pattern of the small triangle. And small triangle here follows the pattern of being inside and outside of the L shape. Therefore, this is why the next item in the sequence should contain a half circle in the lower part of the square, and then the L shape, which is similar with the previous shape and the triangle inside. So the correct answer is choice C. Hopefully you understand what to look for in the similar questions in the test. Let me share with you a tricky question which tests your pattern recognition, reasoning, as well as analytical skills. Which of the following squares comes next in the sequence? You're presented with the sequence of 6 squares, and square number 6 is missing. And you need to pick it up out of 4 different choices: choice A, B, C, and D. As always, my recommendation is look for patterns. You can pause this video for 10 to 15 seconds to see if you can come up with the solution. Did you figure out the answer? Let's continue to see how we can solve this challenge and get to the correct solution together. As always, my recommendation for you is look for patterns. And there are 2 key patterns present in these questions. One pattern is in the squares 1, 3, and 5. What we see here, we see an arrow which rotates, and this particular arrow rotates clockwise, specifically the core of it arrow. So the first one is in the upper left corner, then in square number 3, it moves into the upper right corner, and then in square number 5, it moves to the bottom right corner. Then we have completely different pattern of squares 2, 4, and 6, which was missing. And this particular pattern is double-sided arrow rotates 90 degrees, which you can see here presented. Here it's completely horizontal, here it's completely vertical, so in square number 6 it will be horizontal again. And then another thing that happens here, the corner of the square rotates counterclockwise, and it goes from the bottom left corner to bottom right corner, so the next position for that corner would be upper right corner. So the correct answer here is choice C. Hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar problems on the test. Let's look at the very interesting question you might frequently see on the test. Which of the following squares comes next in the sequence? You're presented with 4 squares. Each square contains a circle inside, and circle has 4 quarters. In 2 of the quarters are different objects. You see triangle and you see another circle, much smaller circle. You have triangles and circles as well as quarter sections located in the different positions, and you need to determine which object comes next in the sequence. You're presented with 4 different choices: A, B, C, and D. But first, you need to understand the pattern. Do you see the pattern? Please give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to see if you can come up with the solution. Did you figure out the answer? Let's continue to see how we can get to the correct solution and solve this challenge together. As usually, my recommendation is always look for patterns. I know sometimes it's hard to see those patterns, but you still should continue and keep looking. In this particular case, we're dealing with the pattern of hourly increments, and we determined the hour based on where the triangle is pointing. So if you look at the first square, triangle is pointing to 6 o'clock. Then the next square, triangle is pointing at 11 o'clock. And 11 o'clock is 5-hour increment from 6 o'clock position. Now, next square, triangle is pointing at noon or midnight, whatever pattern you follow, or 12 o'clock. So we're dealing with 1-hour increment, which means that in the next shape, we will go back to 5-hour increment, which will bring us to 5 o'clock position. So the correct answer is choice D. Hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar problems on the test. And now I have a question for you. I have full confidence that you can solve this question in less than 15 seconds. Here's the question. Which of the following completes the figure? You're presented with the figure on the left, and one square is missing. The square with the question mark. You have 4 different choices to choose from. Choices A, B, C, and D. Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to see if you can come up with the answer on your own. Did you figure out the answer? Please make sure to post the answer as well as your rationale in the comment section of this video so I can give you my feedback. I'm also planning to post a detailed answer in my future videos, so make sure to subscribe and review my latest videos on the topic to learn more about the answer and how to come up with the answers to similar questions on the test. Thanks for participating and good luck! Some of you might find this question tricky, but regardless of whether you can solve it or not on your own, you will be excited to learn the solution to this real-life assessment test question. Here's the question. Determine which object is missing in the sequence. And you're presented with the sequence of 5 objects, and object number 4 is missing. You also have 4 different choices to choose from for the missing object. Choices A, B, C, and D. Each object contains triangles as well as stars. Do you recognize the pattern? Do you see the answer? Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds, maybe pause this video to see if you can come up with the solution on your own. Did you figure out the answer? Let's continue to see how we can solve and get to the correct solution together. I'm probably gonna repeat myself again, but my advice to you is always look for patterns. So there are 2 patterns present here, and both patterns have number of objects. The first pattern is pattern of number of stars in the box. You see that the first box has 3 stars, then it goes down to 2 stars, then 3 stars again, 2, so the next one is 3 again. So the missing object will definitely have 2 stars. There is also a pattern of decreasing triangles, and you see that the number of triangles is decreasing in every square in sequence after being shown twice. For example, object number 1 has 3 triangles. Object number 2 also has 3 triangles. Next object has 2 triangles. So following this pattern, the missing object will also have 2 triangles, and then the last one will have 1 triangle. This is why the missing square contains only 2 stars and 2 triangles in no specific position. So the correct answer here is choice D. Hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar problems on the test. Let me share with you a tricky question from the test. I have confidence, though, that you might figure out the answer. Here's the question. Which of the following figures comes next in the sequence? And you're presented with the sequence of 5 figures, and figure number 5 is missing. You have 4 different choices to choose from. Choices A, B, C, and D. Do you see the answer? Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to see if you can come up with the solution on your own. Did you figure out the answer? Let's continue to see how we can solve this challenge and get to the correct solution together. As you're probably well aware, there is always a solution to any challenge. And to figure out the solution for this particular problem, you need to look for patterns. There are 3 patterns present here in this particular question. Pattern number 1 is that smaller inside square is only present in every other box. So if you look at the squares 1, 3, and 5, they do not have the smaller inside box, and squares 2 and 4 do have it. There is a second pattern here as well. the color of the bigger square depends on the color of the smaller inside square present in the previous figure. So even though there is no small square in the figure number 1, you can take an imaginary square, and this is what will drive the color of the square number 2. Then there is a small square in the figure number 2, and you take the black color of this square, and this is what will drive the color of the square 3, and so on and so forth. The pattern number 3 is the pattern of straight lines, and you see that on the background there is a straight line here, and the straight line is present in every figure. If you look closely, you will see that the straight line rotates clockwise. So, based on this information, you can see that the next square should only contain solid blue square without inside square and straight line following the sequence. This leads us to correct answer for this particular question, being the choice A. Hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar problems on the test. And now I have a question you can try to solve on your own. Here's the question. Which of the following fits the most in this sequence? You're presented with the sequence of objects. The first object has 3 squares with different shapes inside. Second object also has 3 squares with different shapes inside, but 2 of the squares are missing, and this is what you would need to figure out. There is also a third group of squares which is present here in the question. You have 4 different choices. Choices A, B, C, and D. Do you see the missing items? Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to see if you can come up with the solution on your own. Maybe pause this video to see if you can come up with the answer. Did you figure out the answer? Please post it in the comment section of this video, as well as your rationale on how you solved it. This would allow me to give you my feedback. I'm also planning to post a detailed answer in my future videos, so make sure to subscribe and review my latest videos on the topic to learn about the answer and how to come up with the answers to similar questions on the test. Thanks for participating in this challenge, and good luck solving it. Let me share with you a tricky question which tests your pattern recognition as well as logical reasoning skills. Which of the following comes next in the sequence? And you're presented with rectangle, which has multiple squares, and one of the squares is missing. It has a question mark inside. And you have 4 different choices, A, B, C, and D. Take a close look to see if you can come up with the answer. Now might be a good time to pause this video to see if you can come up with the solution on your own. Did you figure out the answer? Let's continue to see how we can get to the correct solution together. There are a couple tricky parts about this question. Number 1 is the general flow of squares, and then there is a sequence of arrows inside the squares. For example, we're starting the flow right here, not in the corner. It's kind of in the middle of the upper row, and then you need to follow the red arrows for the general order. The arrows inside the squares rotating clockwise, and what you can see is the arrowhead for that smaller arrow always points to where it was located in the previous box. So the correct answer here is choice A. I truly hope that you've nailed this question and got to the correct answer on your own. But in case you need more questions or practice problems, please make sure to check out my ebook in the description section of this video. Let me share with you a tricky question which tests your reasoning, analytical, as well as visualization skills. Which of the following completes the missing part? And you're presented with 2 by 2 box. One of the square in the big box is missing. And you have 4 different choices to choose from. A, B, C, and D. Take a closer look and see if you recognize the pattern. Do you think you know the answer? Now might be a good time to pause this video to see if you can come up with the solution on your own. Give yourself 10 or 20 seconds to see if you can come up with the answer. Did you come up with the answer? Let's continue to see how we can solve this challenge together. Tricky question, isn't it? But as usually, all tricky questions always have the answers. So take a look here. There are 4 shapes inside the square, and each shape has a unique color. Shapes stay in place. The only thing that changes is the black color for the shape, and what you can see is that the pattern of the black colors inside the squares, and it rotates counterclockwise. So, as usual, always look for patterns. You see that the flow among the shapes starts in the upper left corner, and flow goes clockwise. But the rotation of the black color inside the squares goes counterclockwise. So that's the tricky part of the question, but there's always the right answer. And as you can see, the right answer here is choice D. Let's recap. Always look for patterns. In this case, there are 4 shapes, and each shape has a unique color. Color black rotates inside the square, but same shapes stay in their original position, and the rotation inside the squares is done counterclockwise. So hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar problems on the test. Let me share with you an interesting question which tests your reasoning skills. Determine which of the following is missing, and you're presented with the large square which could be logically broken into 3 by 3 small squares and 4 different choices. Choice A, B, C, and D. You have a missing square in the bottom left corner. Do you think you can figure out the answer? Now might be a good time to pause this video and give yourself 10 to 20 seconds to see if you can figure out the solution. Do you have the answer? Let's continue to see how we can solve this puzzle and get to the correct solution together. We're presented with the very interesting challenge here, but challenge could be broken down into 2 patterns. The first pattern is the flow of small squares around the middle, and the second pattern is the flow of triangles inside the small squares. Pattern 1 rotates clockwise and starts in the upper left corner. You see that the pattern rotates around the cent clock, which is in the middle, and cent clock does not participate in the pattern. And pattern 2 is determined based on where a triangle touches the lines of the small square. For example, the triangle in the upper left corner touches the lines of the small square in the center you see on the top, as well as down at the bottom. Next one touches on the left and down. The following one touches in the up and also in the center. And you can continue this pattern to determine the missing item, which is choice B. It was a tricky question, but I hope by now you know what to look for and how to answer similar problems on the test. But in case you need more questions or practice problems, please make sure to check out my ebook in the description section of this video. And now, here's the question from the test you can try to solve on your own. I have full confidence, though, that you can solve this challenge and find out the answer. Which of the following figures comes next in the sequence? You're presented with the line of figures, groups of 3 squares, grouped in sections 1, 2, and 3. In the section 3, 2 squares are missing, and this is something that you would need to determine out of the 4 presented choices, A, B, C, and D. Do you see the answer? Maybe give yourself 10 to 15 seconds to see if you can come up with the answer on your own. Did you figure out the solution? If you figured out the answer, feel free to post it in the comment section of this video, and I'll give you my feedback. Make sure to post your rationale as well. This would allow me to comment on how well you solved this challenge and whether your rationale determines correct patterns presented in the question. I'm also planning to post a detailed answer to this question in my future videos, so make sure to subscribe and review my latest videos on the topic to learn about the answer and how to come up with the answers to similar questions on the test. Thanks for participating in this challenge, and good luck solving it. Let's look at the interesting question which tests your pattern recognition skills. Determine the missing shapes inside the figure to complete the sequence. And you're presented with 2 by 2 figure. It has 2 missing shapes, and you have 4 possible choices, A, B, C, and D. Do you see the answer? Now might be a good time to pause this video and give yourself 10 to 20 seconds to see if you can come up with the solution on your own. Did you figure out the solution? Let's continue to see how we can solve this challenge together. As usual, to solve these types of problems on the test, you need to look for patterns. And there are 2 patterns here presented. Number 1 is the diamond pattern in the middle. And number 2 is the pattern of shapes on the outside of the smaller squares, which are unique. Outside shapes corners are always aligned with the corner of the smaller square as well. The 2 missing shapes also have similarities with other shapes present in the box. Upon combining, all triangles in the center form a diamond shape. Let's look at each one of these 2 patterns in more details. You should look for the triangle which matches the color. and upon combining, it should build a diamond. For pattern 2, the missing shape in the upper right corner should complement the shapes with the corners that can be exactly placed in the box. In this case, we selected green rectangle. You also notice that there is a pattern of green color on the opposite side of the squares, same as the purple colors on the opposite sides of other squares. So the correct answer here is choice D. Hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar questions in the test. Let me share with you a tricky question which tests your pattern recognition and visual reasoning skills. Which of the following completes missing parts of the square? And you're presented with the 4x4 square, which contains different smaller squares inside, and 4 possible choices. Choice A, B, C, and D. Do you recognize the pattern? Now might be a good time to pause this video and give yourself 10 to 20 seconds to see if you can come up with the answer. Did you figure out the answer? Let's continue to see how we can solve this challenge together. Interesting question, isn't it? But as usual, look for patterns. If you look closely, you will see that the middle box right in the center of the larger square is symmetrical. So the L shape at the bottom and then another shape in the upper right corner, they represent symmetricity for this middle square, which consists of the 4 small squares. Couple important considerations when answering this question. 2 white boxes designed to confuse you. Lower left part of the larger square only has 3 white spaces in the form of L shape. Similar symmetrical pattern follows in the upper right corner. This is why the missing part consists of the shaded part, which completes the square in the center. So the correct answer here is choice A. Hopefully you've nailed this question and now know how to answer similar problems in the test. Thanks for watching. I encourage you to check out our daily question challenge in the community section of this channel. I also recommend that you check downloads in the description section of this video. Please also check out resources page on our website, howtoanalyzedata.net/resources. If you like the content, please give this video a big thumbs up. This tells us that you need more content like this. I would encourage you to share this video with other people that might be looking for the job. This will help them to get prepared and pass assessment test faster. Please consider subscribing and following this channel. We have a community of great people helping each other to get ready and pass the test. Please leave questions, comments, or suggestions in the comment section of this video. And all the best on your interview and assessment test. Thanks for watching.